Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Devil's Den. We are back despite the New Jersey Devils being ousted from the playoffs and our season being over. That doesn't mean that the videos are going to end. This is going to be the first video I make for the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs. I did promise you this video was coming. In this one, we're going to be going over the Eastern Conference playoff predictions for each of the 8 teams that are playing, who's going to win each series, how long each series is going to go for, and kind of players who I think are probably going to be notable in said series. We're not going to do the Western Conference yet. That'll be a video that will be coming out on Saturday, the first day of the playoffs. So feel free and make sure to check that one out. Make sure your notifications are on YouTube if you guys are subscribed, because that way you guys will get the videos immediately when they come out. So, Eastern Conference, we have 8 teams. We have 4 different series. We have the New York Rangers playing the Washington Capitals. We have the Florida Panthers playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. We have the Carolina Hurricanes playing the New York Islanders. And we have the Boston Bruins playing the Toronto Maple Leafs in what sort of feels like the bajillionth series between these two teams. But we're gonna jump into this. And we're going to go through each and every series, who I think is going to win, why I think that, how long the series is going to go for, and obviously notable players for that series to look out for. So let's jump into this right away. New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals. So I feel like this is probably going to be the easiest series for me to sort of decide on in the entirety of the East. I really do. I think this is going to be a pretty easy walk in the park. I think that the New York Rangers are going to be the winner of this series. They have been incredibly, as much as I hate saying that, they have been incredible. Whether you like the Rangers or not, they have been incredibly dominant all year. Panarin has been firing on all cylinders. Zibanejad's had a good year. Shesterkin's had a good year. The whole team has really stepped it up a notch. As much as I despise these filthy rags, okay? I cannot stand the Rangers, but I think Rangers win this in 5. Why not 4? Because I actually think that Charlie Lindgren, the goaltender for the Washington Capitals, may steal a game somewhere in this series. I don't know if it's going to be game 1. I don't know if the Rangers are going to go up 3-0 and then Lindgren makes like a 50-save, 40-save night and gets a shutout or lets in 1 goal. I don't know what's going to happen, but I see the New York Rangers winning that series in 5 against the Washington Capitals. The Capitals, I'm sorry, despite making the playoffs, are not a good team. They have a negative 35 plus minus, meaning that they have had 35 more goals scored on them throughout the length in the series than they've had goals scored for them. Okay, this is a team which absolutely should not have made the playoffs in any regards, and if it weren't for the fact that the Detroit Red Wings and the Philadelphia Flyers absolutely shit the bed the last 20 games of the season, they would not be in the playoffs. So yeah, Rangers in 5. Despite the fact that I cannot stand either of these teams, the Rangers being disgusting for obvious reasons with Trouba and Rempe, and Washington also being disgusting with pieces of crap like Tom Wilson on their team. So both sides are going to be interesting. It's going to be a very dirty series. I already know it. I think we're going to see like at least 2 or 3 guys have to leave games just from probably headshots, probably elbows to the head, and just really dirty play, with Rempe, Trouba, and Wilson being big factors in that. So, in terms of players who I think should be watched throughout the series, let's start with the Rangers. I feel like Panarin is just the immediate go-to here, okay? Panarin has had an absolute career year. He's been absolutely fantastic. Whatever he did in the offseason, whatever powers he got in the offseason by shaving his head and taking his hair Kucherov clearly works because Panarin's been, whether you like the Rangers or not, Panarin has been a force to be reckoned with this year. So Panarin, I think, though having a history of not showing up in the playoffs, I genuinely think that him and Zibanejad, maybe not so much Zibanejad, but Panarin I think is going to be a big force to be reckoned with. Shesterkin I think is going to be, I think Shesterkin has to step it up here. But yeah, Panarin's going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's going to be my guy to watch on the Rangers for this series. On Washington's side, I don't think it's going to be Ovechkin. I don't think it's going to be Wilson. I don't think it's going to be Karlsson. I don't think it's going to be any, it's going to be Lindgren. Lindgren has been their goaltender, the Capitals goaltender, has been phenomenal this year, especially the last push to get them in the playoffs. Guy has played fantastically, and I think if the Rangers aren't careful, you're going to see guys like Charlie Lindgren steal games. At least a game. At least a game. I think he's going to be the big reason why these games are either going to be close or big reasons why the Capitals actually managed to squeak out a game here. Okay? So, that's it. Rangers are winning this series. It's going to be in 5 games, and Panarin and Lindgren are our guys to watch. So, moving on to the next series, because I kind of want to go boom, 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 boom through this. I don't want to have a 20-minute video. Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think this is probably going to be the most overlooked series. Maybe Rangers, Capitals, but I think this is going to be a seriously overlooked series. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I see this series going to 6 or 7 games. I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning, for the first time in a long time, are coming into this as complete underdogs, right? Everyone thinks Florida is going to come in and just smash the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. Tampa Bay has not lost enough on their core, on their team, on everything from their Stanley Cup championships, right? You've still got guys like Hedman, like Vasilevsky, like Stamkos, like Kucherov, who has had, again, what feels like a career year. I'll have to double check the numbers on that. But Kucherov has been an absolute beast, candidate for the Hart Trophy again, getting 3 assists alone in the last game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where they ended up winning that game. But yeah, I think this game goes to 6 or 7 games, and I think Florida now has to kind of overcome the Boston curse from last year, where Boston had a historic, record-breaking year, and then went into the playoffs and got usurped by the Panthers. And I think the Panthers, while not winning the President's Trophy this year, or even winning the Eastern Conference title, Florida has been, I've been trying to read quite a bit. I think Florida is going to be a team where they have to, like, okay, the next step is now. They've been to a cup final. They want to go back to a cup final. They want to win the cup. But I think that Tampa is going to be a major underdog here, and I think that they still have the parts and the will and the drive to push this series to 6 or 7 games. In terms of who wins this series, I genuinely don't know. And I know that's a cop-out answer. If I were a betting man, the betting man in me says probably go Florida just on probability. But, like, I don't know. I genuinely do. Tampa, I think that people are underestimating Tampa. Vasilevsky this year had a .900 save percentage. This has been his most meh year that he's ever had. Okay? Easily. Right? And it's not even close. Right? Vasilevsky from 3, 4, 5 years ago was putting up .926 save percentage numbers throughout the year. Okay? Vezina, like, a Vezina contender after Vezina contender. And I think that if Florida's not careful, Vasilevsky could put in a Conn Smythe performance if the Panthers are not careful. So yeah, I genuinely am not sure. My gut tells me Florida, but I could see that series going 6 or 7 games. Now, in terms of guys who I genuinely think we should be looking at in terms of the series, I feel like this is 2 of them are gonna. I got 3 guys. 2 of them are gonna be, I feel like, easy picks. Tampa Bay being Nikita Kucherov, because it's Nikita freaking Kucherov. I mean, he's unbelievably good. Arguably one of, if not the best player in the NHL. Up there with guys like McDavid. Up there with Matthews. He's still unbelievable, right? Even as he gets older, he's still unbelievably good. For Florida, on the other hand, I've got Reinhart, which is not a big surprise. Reinhart's been a big reason why Florida's been successful. Guy had almost 50 goals this year. I think it was something like 42, 45 goals this year. Again, Reinhart's a stud. He's going to continue to be a stud because just because of his offensive capability. And again, I think he's one of those guys who's overlooked in the league because of guys like McDavid, like Kucherov, like Matthews, like Crosby, like Ovechkin, like all these, like Bedard, all these up-and-comers as well, right? However, there's one guy in Florida who I think deserves special attention, and that's Stolarz. So Stolarz is the backup goaltender for the Florida Panthers. Now, he has played a considerable number of games this year behind Bobrovsky. They sort of share that responsibility, 1A, 1B. In fact, Stolarz actually, I believe, either has more wins or has a better save percentage than Bobrovsky himself. Stolarz, and he's played a considerable number of games as a backup goaltender. And I could see something happening where, you know, we go game 1, game 2, and Bobrovsky gets bombed out of the net, right? Where Tampa Bay scores 3, 4, 5 goals on him, and they pull him, and Stolarz goes in. Stolarz is a sleeper. Stolarz is the kind of guy, is the kind of backup that you want because he's going to be able to go into that net and just be an instant turnaround for you. I think the Stolarz has the potential to steal a series if Bob goes down, because Bob has a history of not doing so well in the playoffs, besides last year, but that's an anomaly and I'm not counting that. Bob did play great last year and was a big reason behind the Cup final last year, but I think Stolarz is a sleeper who I don't think will give him enough credit. On to the next series. So, next up is the Carolina Hurricanes against the New York Islanders. So, New Jersey, our guys, we played Carolina last year in round 2 after a seven game series against the Rangers, and Carolina showed us what a playoff team is supposed to be. Okay? Carolina, again, I think that they're a sleeper team. I know they're second in the Metropolitan, but when you've got playoffs with guys like Florida, Tampa, Boston, Rangers, some of these guys are Stanley Cup winners. Some of these guys are legit Stanley Cup contenders. Some of these guys are favorites. I think Carolina is a sleeper team who will sneak up on people and be like, oh, damn, did they just take out Florida? Oh, damn, did they just take out the Rangers? I could easily see that. So for that series, I'm saying Carolina in 5 games. I think Islanders get 1 game off of that. But I think we're going to see Carolina take out the Islanders in 5 games. I think that Carolina is one of the most complete teams in the NHL. From goaltending, though there have been issues with Frederik Andersen. Defense, they've got an underrated defensive core. From forward, Sebastian Aho. And I know a lot of Devils guys may not like me for my answer, my praise of Carolina, but I genuinely, when you guys go back and you rewatch that series against Carolina, okay? The Devils played badly. They did. No question about it. But Carolina they were so good. They were so unified and matured and ready and had the will to win, and they did. They went to an Eastern Conference final. Carolina is on the brink of being a Stanley Cup winner. I do genuinely believe that, because I think that they all around, there's not a whole lot of chinks in that storm. On the other hand, we have the Islanders. Now, the Islanders, under the coaching site, I don't know. Under Patrick Waugh, the legendary goaltender, have been remarkable in their attempts to push for a playoff appearance and pull themselves out of a playoff hopeful to a wild card to the 3rd spot in the Metropolitan. And it's not that the Islanders aren't a good team, because they can be. They have good games and they have some real stinkers as well. But one of the key things that I think the Islanders don't have that Carolina does is they have a lot of holes. They have a lot of we can roll with this line, but like, are we sure? Barzal's great, you know. Varlamov's great. What's his face? Not Varlamov. Why can't I remember his the starts with an S? They're number one goaltender. I genuinely think that the Island they have too many holes. They have too many holes, and there's a lot of uncertainty there that I think Carolina doesn't have that lets Carolina take this in 5 games. In terms of people to watch, Carolina made a great move, in my opinion, trading what feels like a lot for Jake Gensel from Pittsburgh. And they brought him over. They got rid of Michael Bunting, who's played for the Leafs. And they got rid of some prospects for Jake Gensel. Jake Gensel is one of these guys, even when he played for Pittsburgh, is a great player. He can be a playmaker role. He can be a sniper role. He's incredibly hardworking. And I think that Jake Gensel is going to be... I mean, when he got traded to Carolina, I think in his first 10 games, he had something like 13, 15 points in 10 games. Like, he's been great playing with Carolina, and I think fits that mold for Carolina really well. So, in terms of guys to watch out for in this series, it's Jake Gensel for Carolina. I actually think he'll be more interesting to watch than Sebastian Aho. I don't know how to pronounce his last name half the time. Aho, I don't know. And then for the Islanders, it's going to be the goalie tandem. It's going to be having both goalies switch on and off, and I would be really interested to see who they play in Game 1, because Varlamov, their backup, has been phenomenal for the Islanders. And he's, again, huge reason why they made it to the playoffs. So, we've covered the first 3. Now comes to the final one. The Boston Bruins versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, here's my thing. This, I think, is going to be the toughest call out of all 3 of these series. So, I'm just going to switch this over real quick. So, I got notes, as I always do, but I want to make sure I get this right. So, I'm going to just switch this over really quickly. There we go. So, Boston Bruins versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, these 2 teams have a massive history, have played several playoff appearances against each other in the first round, and every single time Boston has come out ahead. That doesn't mean necessarily that they will this time. However, I think that this series is going to 7, as all other Boston-Toronto series have. And I think that the Boston Bruins actually win this series. As much as that might be a bit of a surprise, or maybe it's not. I don't know. You guys can tell me how you feel. I think that Boston wins this series for one reason and one reason alone. The Leafs have the better team. The Leafs have the better firepower. The Leafs have the better offense. And in my opinion, the Leafs actually have the better defense. However, Boston has the better goaltending. I don't think that should even be controversial in the slightest. Swayman and Ullmark are arguably one of the best tandems in the NHL. But it's not the goaltending that I think is going to make the difference. This Leafs team, even throughout this year, has had a bad habit of allowing their emotions to allow them to lose games that they have no business losing. This series is going to be incredibly emotionally high-strung because of the history that these two teams have when it comes to each other in the playoffs. And I think if Boston plays their cards right, they can get under the skin of the Leafs so unbelievably easy. And if the Leafs take the bait that Boston leaves for them and let their emotions take control of them and get reckless and make stupid mistakes because they're playing with all of their emotions on their sleeves, then I think Boston takes this. Now, this is a more mature Leafs team since we last saw these two teams play in the playoffs, right? Toronto's been up against Tampa for, 2-3 years in a row now. We took a break from Boston and then we focused on Tampa. But now the Leafs are older, more mature, so we'll see what happens. But I genuinely think that Boston takes this series in 7 games, as all Boston-Toronto series has done. Players to watch out for in this series are going to be, for the Boston, I think it's got to be Brad Marchand. The Rat has all of the upper hand here in this series because of his ability to drive the opponent to a mental hospital because of how insane he drives people. Okay? This is a guy that can get... This is a guy who is not above licking people's ears to get under their skin. Okay? And again, I think this series is going to be won by the team that can keep their emotions under control. And Brad Marchand is such an effective guy at getting under people's skins. I think he's going to be the guy that if they win this series, it's going to be because of him. Not necessarily because of the skill that he brings to the game. He is good. He's a fairly good player. But he's so good at just twisting the knife between the ribs. And it really is going to depend whether Toronto takes the bait. For Toronto, I think this is a fairly easy pick for me in terms of players to watch. It's gotta be Nylander. Nylander has been historically, right, for the last number of years in the playoffs, Nylander has been their best player in the playoffs. Okay, forget guys like Frederik Andersen, who has also been great for the Leafs. Doesn't play for them anymore, but he was great. But Nylander has been consistently the Leafs' best guy on the team when it comes time to go in the playoffs. Matthews often goes quiet. Marner often goes quiet. Tavares steps up here and there, but it's been Nylander that's been the one to bring the points, to bring the goals, and to try to push his team forward. So Nylander is going to be the guy to watch. I think no questions asked. Nylander is going to be great. Again, this is an older, more mature Leafs team, so maybe we see more point production from other guys. Depth is going to be something that doesn't get talked enough about for the Leafs, because I do think they have decently good depth. They made some good acquisitions during the offseason. So we'll see what happens. But I think Boston in 7. I think Carolina in 5. I think Florida and Tampa, I think they're going to 7. Minimum 6 games. I think it's going to be 6 or 7. It can go either way there. And I think it's going to be Rangers in 5 over the Capitals, which will leave us, I believe, with, I can't do the math right now, but I'm pretty sure it'll be something like Rangers, Boston, Carolina, Florida, Tampa. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong, but we'll see what happens. So those are my predictions for the first round for the Eastern Conference. Western Conference video will be coming Saturday after the events of tonight's games for the Western Conference to finally get those playoff matchups locked in. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys on Saturday night for the first day of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Adios.